In this video, you are going to learn how to answer executive level interview questions and common mistakes that candidates often make so you can avoid those pitfalls. And this is actually a subscriber submitted video request in one of my comments. So again, this is the second time we're doing this, and so I promise you I really do read all of the comments. So comment down below what other video ideas you want to see, because I just want to make helpful content for all of you. And if you find this video helpful, make sure you click subscribe or share it with a friend who is preparing for their executive level interview questions. Okay, so before we dive into the really commonly used executive interview questions that you definitely need to know, I want to talk about some general tips and approaches that you need to be thinking about when you are preparing, practicing, and actually doing these executive level interviews. And the first thing is that there is absolutely no room for errors or mistakes during the entire interview process. Remember, you're applying for an executive level role at a company. You have huge visibility and are a very important member of the overall community and leadership team. And so one mistake, one bad answer to one interview question, or even just one potentially slightly negative internal reference from someone at that company will totally ruin your chances of getting that job. So you need to be on your game for all of your interviews and interactions. Treat everything like it's the most important interview you will ever have. No mistakes. The second thing to keep in mind is that executives are almost always hired based on their specific domain experience and accomplishments. They need to know that you have a proven track record succeeding at whatever it is that they need this executive to accomplish in the short term. Very rarely will a company take a chance and hire someone who has never done something before. So what this means is your industry experience must align. All of the experiences and projects and accomplishments that you're going to be sharing must be exactly what this company is looking for right now. The more of an exact match you can show them you are to this specific role that they need right now, the way higher your likelihood is of being picked as the finalist. Also, for these executive level roles, you need to prepare for a lot of leadership, culture fit, and teamwork based questions, even if you are in a technical field like software, hardware, or silicon engineering. Remember, you're going to be an executive, so you're probably going to be in charge of a pretty large organization. You are going to be the face of your organization, and there's going to be tens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of people looking up to you. So your soft skills and your leadership are going to be a pivotal point in the interview process. And make sure you are preparing for a lot of hypothetical, scenario-based interview questions. I know it may seem like you're giving free consulting or advice because they're going to be asking you exactly how you would operate in this role or solve a specific problem that they need right now. But trust me, this is a normal part of the interview process, and you should still give it your very best and do a lot of research beforehand so that you have the most comprehensive answer and realistic and customized solutions to their specific company. All right, so what is the first really common interview question that you need to know? And that is, why do you want to be an executive at this company? Even if you were found by an executive search firm or someone found you on LinkedIn and you weren't actually applying for this role, because most executives are not actively applying, you still need to show excitement and enthusiasm and do your research about the company so that they can feel your energy and know that you actually want this job, even though you didn't necessarily apply for it yourself. Do some research on your own and even ask your executive recruiter for prep materials. You need to understand what the company's vision is, their short-term and their long-term, what their growth strategy is, what their major competitors are up to, and where the industry is going overall. And these should all be components of your answer as to why you want to work there and take this specific job right now. Another common question is, describe your leadership style. For this answer, you're going to want to check in with your executive recruiter again to get a quick pulse check on what is the overall leadership values of the company and what is the culture of the company truly like at the executive level. What does the CEO want to see in his direct reports? Sometimes companies clearly state their leadership principles, like Amazon does on their website, or they even tell you what their company culture and values are. So you're going to want to make sure you know exactly what those are so you can weave those into your answers. But if a company doesn't have a lot of information or your recruiter can't give you any hints, there are a few general themes that would make a good leadership style at all companies for executives. Often you're going to want to show that you have a flexible leadership style and you can adapt your leadership style to whatever particular situation, confrontation, or personality you are dealing with. The really important part of your answer here is being able to explain that you know exactly when to use different leadership styles and how it is appropriate, and be prepared to share examples of times when you've executed this flawlessly. You're also probably going to want to mention that you see yourself as a transformational leader because, of course, you're an executive and they don't pay you to just stick to the status quo. Also, as a part of your leadership style, you're going to want to weave in there your risk tolerance. So as part of your research, try and understand whether or not this company is more risk averse or they really like mavericks and folks who are willing to push the envelope and try new things. And of course, make sure they know that you are always confident in yourself and in your decisions. And even if you ended up making the wrong decision, you were able to do a post-mortem analysis, understand why something didn't work out even though you thought it would, what you learned from it, and then how you were able to turn things around. Another interview question to prepare for and practice is, how would you handle negative press or criticism? Firstly, make sure that your answer talks about how you would handle this both internally at the company and externally as well. Remember, as an executive, your main job is to protect the company and to do risk mitigation. You also want to be mindful of how this is impacting the belief in your company and the overall morale both internally and externally in the market. Be solutions oriented and sympathetic when needed, especially if something really bad or tragic happens in the news. And of course, make sure you're talking about how you're going to be working with your corporate comms team to handle all of these types of issues and how you would come prepared with a strategic plan and vision to execute with your comms team. Another question is, why shouldn't we hire you? This is very similar to tell me about your weaknesses. Of course, you're going to want to show self-awareness and that you actually have weaknesses or reasons not to get hired. But most importantly, you need to demonstrate your growth over your career and in your leadership positions. This is also your opportunity to address any potential skill gaps or experience gaps that you may have from what they're exactly targeting. And you may be telling yourself, well, I mean, why would I want to bring up the fact that I don't know how to specifically do something? Well, if they're still interviewing you at this point and they've already told you that they need someone who can do, for example, a really deep social media marketing campaign working with 5 different external vendors and partners, and they know that you actually have no social media background as a marketing executive, you've been more on the digital or print side instead, they're still interviewing you, which therefore means they're actually still interested in you and they want to see how you would address this potential skill gap in the short term. Or how can you convince them and give them confidence that this is not really a skill gap or not something that they should be concerned about for you. And of course, most obviously, don't share anything that would get you immediately rejected from this role. So don't share any reason or weakness that is super core and important to the role that would therefore leave you unhireable. The next question is, what are some significant career challenges you faced and how you have overcome them? Remember, this is different from the previous question. They're not asking you to talk about your weaknesses. This is a very common trick and trap. So do not share weaknesses when they ask you about some challenges you have overcome. You're going to want to be talking about any potential challenges or roadblocks that you overcame and try to pick ones that have huge complexity and broad-reaching scale and impact. Another interview question is, what is your growth strategy for us? At the executive level, they're looking for industry leaders and folks who can have a huge transformational impact at their company. So make sure you show off your industry knowledge, talk about upcoming trends that you foresee in the market or even what some of their major competitors or even vendors and suppliers are asking for or are doing currently, and make sure you tie it back specifically to their business, their products, and their specific situation today. Very often what a lot of executives will do is just talk about things they're seeing or hearing in the industry to show that they're an industry expert, but they lack to connect it back to that specific company itself to make it relevant. You're also going to want to take note of what the executive was before you or your predecessor in this role was doing. Were they able to already achieve double-digit growth for this product or this company before you took over? Or were they let go due to performance and they're looking for someone to turn things around? You're going to want to understand this context and also let that influence your answer and level of risk mitigation. You're going to want to have this information guide your answer and determine how extreme of a growth proposal you want to give. All right, so now what are some common mistakes that I see people make in executive level interview questions that unfortunately get them rejected, even though they feel like they did everything correct and they answered all of the interview questions properly? And the first thing is overconfidence and arrogance. Now, you'd be surprised how often this comes up, but just because you are already an executive, you probably do have a pretty high level of self-confidence, and you already know that you are very good at your job, and that's why you're currently an executive today. But don't make this come across as arrogant. Even if you are known as the industry expert or the industry leader in a certain area, don't let this come across, because a lot of companies don't want to hire people who are jerks or are going to be really abrasive leaders that no one is going to like working for, even if they have really great innovative ideas or are fantastic engineers. The second common mistake is talking too much about your past experiences and accomplishments. Now, of course, if they ask you a behavioral question, you're going to want to use the STAR method and talk about things you've done in the past, but a lot of your answers need to be future and forward looking. They don't really care about what you've done in the past, because they care about what you're going to be able to impact for them in the future as an executive. If you were applying for lower level roles or entry level roles, you would be able to talk about your past a lot, because that's really why they're hiring you, is can you repeat what you've done in the past? But for this executive level role, they care about the future and what you'll be able to influence and impact for them. Another kind of tricky thing, but is a common mistake, is balancing the we's and I's in your answer. And what I mean by that is making sure you're not saying we too much, therefore showing that there's a lot of people involved in decisions or have made a huge impact in terms of your projects. Because if you use we too much, they'll never really know what you were specifically responsible for, what you can take credit for, and why they should be hiring you for your specific knowledge. But on the flip side, if you only say I did this, or I was in charge of this, or I came up with this, then they're going to think that you're not really a good team player and you don't have good leadership skills and you would rather just work on your own, which is also something that they don't want as an executive. So make sure you're able to strike that proper balance. The easiest way to do this is to record yourself when you're giving your behavioral answers and see which and when it is appropriate to switch between the two. The next common mistake is forgetting your fundamentals and basics within your role itself. You've probably been an executive or managing people or being a tech lead for a while, and you haven't really needed to code or think about some of the marketing basics or finance basics that you learned when you were in college or when you were in your first 5 years in your role or job. But remember, they still need to make sure that you have the technical aptitude to actually do this job, and it is an interview. So don't forget to brush up on your fundamentals and make sure you're solid in all of them. They don't need a really basic or simple reason to not hire you. All right, so now you know how to approach and answer executive level interview questions, common executive interview questions and how to properly answer them, and common mistakes that I commonly see so you can avoid those and you don't get rejected. Thank you all for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe if you find it helpful or share it with a friend, and don't be afraid to shake things up.